What if a simple rescue led to unraveling a decades-old mystery? In the quaint town of Brooksville, firefighter Alex never expected his day to turn into an adventure. Saving a stranded cat from a tree was just another routine call until he found the old, worn collar. Whiskers, 1983. The discovery sent shivers down his spine. Could this cat be linked to the mysterious disappearance of Mrs. Turner, who vanished over 40 years ago? Chapter 1. The rescue. The afternoon sun bathed Brooksville in a warm, golden light, casting long shadows across the small town square. The day had been peaceful until the wail of a fire truck siren shattered the quiet. A small group of curious onlookers gathered, their eyes following the truck as it stopped beneath a large oak tree. Children, parents, and shopkeepers emerged from stores, eager to see what the commotion was about. In Brooksville, such excitement was rare, and any break from the mundane routine was welcomed. Alex, a firefighter in his early 30s with a friendly face and a reputation for being dependable, hopped down from the truck. He glanced up at the source of the distress call, a black and white tabby cat perched precariously on a high branch. The cat, its eyes wide with a mix of fear and curiosity, looked down at the gathering crowd, letting out a plaintive meow that seemed to echo in the quiet afternoon. "Looks like we've got ourselves a little adventure today," Alex said, a smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. His partner, Steve, who was a few years older and a bit more serious, nodded in agreement. "Better than a false alarm," Steve replied, handing Alex the ladder. The two had seen their fair share of action, but they both agreed that a simple cat rescue was a welcome change from the usual emergencies. As Alex positioned the ladder against the sturdy trunk of the oak tree, he couldn't help but notice the gentle sway of the leaves in the summer breeze. It was the kind of day that made one appreciate the simpler things in life. He climbed the ladder with the ease of someone who had done this countless times before, each rung creaking slightly under his weight. "Come on, little buddy," Alex coaxed as he reached the top, his voice calm and soothing. The cat's ears twitched, and it stared at him with a wary expression. Alex reached out slowly, his movements careful and deliberate, not wanting to spook the already frightened animal. Just as he was about to grab the cat, he noticed something odd. Around its neck was an old, frayed collar, its once vibrant color now faded with time. Dangling from the collar was a small, tarnished silver tag. Alex managed to gently grasp the cat, cradling it against his chest. He began his descent, carefully balancing the cat in one arm while holding onto the ladder with the other. Once safely on the ground, the cat relaxed, its tense muscles slowly unwinding. The crowd clapped, some laughing and chatting about the event as if it were the highlight of their week. Alex smiled and gave a small bow, enjoying the moment of lightheartedness. He scratched the cat behind its ears, which prompted a soft purr in response. "Let's see who you belong to," Alex murmured, lifting the tag to get a closer look. The inscription on it was barely legible, worn down by years of wear. He squinted, finally making out the words, "Whiskers, 1983. He frowned, puzzled. 1983? "That's odd," he said, more to himself than anyone else. Steve, who had been packing up the gear, glanced over. "What's odd?" he asked, walking up to join Alex. "This collar," Alex replied, holding it up. "It says 1983. Steve raised an eyebrow. "That can't be right. You're saying this cat is over 40 years old?" "No way." Alex nodded, equally confused. "Yeah, seems impossible, but it's right here." He showed the tag to Steve, who examined it closely, a look of disbelief on his face. One of the older bystanders, a woman with silver hair and a cane, stepped forward, peering at the tag. Her eyes widened in recognition. "Whiskers? Could it really be?" she whispered, more to herself than anyone else. Alex and Steve turned to her, curious. "You know something about this cat?" Alex asked. The woman nodded slowly. Curiosity piqued, he examined the coat more closely and discovered a small pocket stitched inside, barely noticeable unless one was specifically looking for it. He reached in and pulled out a folded piece of paper. It was old, the edges yellowed, and the ink slightly faded. Unfolding the note, Alex read the words written in elegant, flowing handwriting, "To whoever wears this coat, may you find the warmth of kindness and the strength to chase your dreams." The note was simple yet profound. Alex read it again, feeling a strange sense of connection to the unknown writer. It was as if someone had reached through time to offer him a message of encouragement. In that moment, Alex felt a surge of determination. The note, like the coat, became a symbol of hope and resilience. Alex kept the note close, often reading it before heading out for another day of job searching. It became a source of quiet strength, a reminder that he wasn't alone in his struggles. Meanwhile, Jonathan continued with his life, unaware of the small, yet significant, impact his old coat was having on someone else. The city continued its daily rhythm, a place of countless intersecting lives and stories. Jonathan, successful yet feeling a vague emptiness, often found himself looking out over the cityscape from his office window, wondering what more there was to life. Alex, on the other hand, felt a new energy, as if the coat and the note had somehow reinvigorated his spirit. He continued to push forward, not just out of necessity, but with a renewed sense of purpose. As the days turned into weeks, Alex's luck began to change. He secured a few interviews, and though they didn't immediately lead to a job, he felt more confident and prepared. The coat, now worn almost daily, seemed to be a good luck charm, reminding him that even in the darkest times, a little warmth and kindness could make all the difference. Jonathan and Alex, two men from different worlds, were unknowingly connected by a simple coat and a heartfelt note. This connection, fragile yet profound, set the stage for a series of events that would eventually bring their lives together in ways neither could have anticipated. But for now, they continued their separate journeys, each unaware of the other, yet both touched by the silent promise of kindness and the pursuit of dreams. Alex Turner woke up early, as he did every day, to the faint sound of city traffic filtering through his apartment window. The morning light, soft and tentative, crept into the room, revealing the modest furnishings and the small pile of job applications he had prepared the night before. Alex had moved to the city with high hopes, armed with a degree and dreams of making a name for himself. Yet, months later, the reality of unemployment and dwindling funds had cast a long shadow over his once bright aspirations. He stretched, feeling the familiar stiffness in his back from the old couch he often used as a bed. The apartment was small, just a single room that served as bedroom, living room, and kitchen, but it was enough for now. Alex quickly got ready, pulling on his usual outfit, a plain shirt, worn jeans, and the coat he had found at the charity store. The coat had quickly become his favorite piece of clothing, not just for its warmth but for the sense of comfort it brought him. It was a shield, both physical and emotional, against the chill of the world outside. The note he had found in the coat's lining remained folded in his pocket, a silent companion on his daily journey. Alex had memorized its words, "To whoever wears this coat, may you find the warmth of kindness and the strength to chase your dreams." The note was unsigned, but its message resonated with him deeply. It felt like a personal blessing, a touch of kindness from an unknown benefactor. As Alex stepped out into the brisk morning air, he felt a renewed sense of purpose. He had a few job interviews lined up, and he was determined to make the best impression possible. The city, bustling with life, felt both overwhelming and full of potential. He navigated through the crowded streets, the coat wrapped tightly around him, feeling the weight of the note's words pressing warmly against his chest. It was the early 80s, I think. One day, she just vanished. No one saw her leave, and no one found any clues. The house was left exactly as it was, like she intended to come back. Whiskers was gone too, and folks started spinning all kinds of theories. As Joe spoke, a few other firefighters gathered around, drawn by the tale. Alex leaned back in his chair, listening intently. Some people thought she left town, Joe continued, maybe to escape some trouble or to start fresh somewhere else. Others believed she might have met with an accident, but there was no body, no signs of foul play. And then there were those who thought it had something to do with that old family heirloom she had. Steve, who had been quiet until now, raised an eyebrow. Heirloom? What kind of heirloom? Joe shrugged, setting his coffee down. No one really knows. The Turners were a well-to-do family back in the day, and Mrs. Turner was rumored to have something valuable, a locket or a piece of jewelry, maybe. Some folks believed it was hidden somewhere in the house, and Mrs. Turner left clues to find it. But if that's true, no one's ever found it. The room fell silent, the weight of the mystery settling over them like a fog. Alex glanced at Whiskers, who was now lazily cleaning his paws. Could this cat really be connected to such an old story? Joe sighed, breaking the silence. After she disappeared, the house was left empty. Over the years, it fell into disrepair. Some people tried to buy it, but the deals always fell through. It's like the place is cursed or something. The mention of the house piqued Alex's interest. Do you think there might still be clues there? Something that could explain what happened? Joe shrugged again, though his eyes sparkled with curiosity. Could be. But it'd be a wild goose chase after all these years. Still, if Whiskers here is the same cat, maybe he's a part of the puzzle. As the conversation wound down, Alex felt a growing sense of determination. The story of Mrs. Turner and Whiskers had a strange pull, a mix of mystery and nostalgia that he couldn't ignore. It was more than just a curious case, it was a piece of the town's history, a story waiting to be told. Later that day, after the station had quieted down, Alex decided to take a walk to the old Turner house. The afternoon sun was beginning to dip, casting long shadows across the town. The house stood at the end of Maple Street, partially obscured by overgrown bushes and a rusting iron gate. The paint was peeling, and the windows were covered in dust, giving the place an eerie, abandoned feel. Alex pushed open the gate, the hinges creaking loudly in the stillness. He hesitated for a moment, then walked up the cracked stone path to the front door. The door itself was an imposing structure, its wood warped with age. He placed a hand on the doorknob, half expecting it to be locked, but it turned easily under his grip. The inside of the house was dark and musty, the air thick with the smell of old wood and dust. Sunlight filtered in through the dirty windows, casting weak beams of light across the floor. The furniture was still in place, covered with sheets that had long since gathered dust. It was as if time had stopped, preserving the moment Mrs. Turner had left, or had been taken away. Alex wandered through the rooms, each step stirring up small clouds of dust. The walls were lined with shelves full of books and trinkets, each one a potential clue. In the living room, he found a grand piano, its keys yellowed with age, and a fireplace with a portrait of a young Mrs. Turner above it. She had a kind face, her eyes bright with a mischievous twinkle, and beside her in the painting was a young Whiskers. As Alex explored, he tried to imagine the life Mrs. Turner had led here. The stories Joe had shared made him feel as if he was walking through a living memory. But there were no immediate answers, just an overwhelming sense of loss and unanswered questions. Eventually, Alex found himself in the study, where a large oak desk dominated the room. On the desk, he noticed a small, leather-bound diary. It was worn, the pages yellowed, and the cover embossed with a delicate floral design. His heart raced as he gently opened it, hoping to find some clue that might explain the mystery of Mrs. Turner's disappearance. The entries were in neat, elegant handwriting, detailing mundane aspects of Mrs. Turner's life, gardening, visits from friends, and, of course, her love for Whiskers. But as Alex read further, the tone of the diary changed. Mrs. Turner began writing about feeling watched, about strange occurrences around the house. Her final entry was particularly cryptic, mentioning a valuable legacy in her desire to keep it safe for the right person to find. Alex closed the diary, his mind racing. The heirloom, Whiskers, the diary, it all seemed connected, yet the pieces didn't quite fit together. But he knew one thing for certain, he couldn't stop now. The mystery had only deepened, and with it, his determination to uncover the truth. He left the house with the diary tucked under his arm, his mind buzzing with possibilities. As he walked back through the quiet streets of Brooksville, he felt a strange kinship with Mrs. Turner, as if they were both bound by the threads of this long-forgotten story. The town, too, seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the next chapter to unfold. And Alex, with a renewed sense of purpose, was ready to dive deeper into the mystery, not yet knowing where it might lead or what secrets he would uncover. Chapter 3: Unearthing the Past. The morning sun filtered through the trees, casting a warm glow over Brooksville. Alex sat at his kitchen table, the leather-bound diary open before him. He had spent the night poring over Mrs. Turner's entries, trying to piece together the clues she had left behind. The diary was a treasure trove of memories and insights, painting a vivid picture of a woman who was both kind and enigmatic. As he sipped his coffee, Alex found himself returning to the final entries. Mrs. Turner had written about a valuable legacy she wanted to protect, and her increasing unease about strangers inquiring about it. The entries hinted at something precious, possibly the heirloom Joe had mentioned, but there were no clear indications of what it was or where it might be hidden. Feeling the need for more information, Alex decided to visit the Brooksville Historical Society. The society was housed in a quaint building near the town center, a repository of the town's rich history. As he walked through the quiet streets, he couldn't help but notice the subtle changes in the town: new shops, renovated houses, but the essence of Brooksville remained unchanged, a place steeped in stories and secrets. The Historical Society was a modest building, its facade adorned with ivy and a weathered sign. Inside, it was a different world. The air was cool and musty, filled with the scent of old books and polished wood. Shelves lined the walls, packed with documents, photos, and artifacts from Brooksville's past. Alex was greeted by Mrs. Henderson, the society's longtime curator. She was a small, energetic woman with sharp eyes and a keen sense of curiosity. "Alex, what brings you here?" she asked, her voice warm with welcome. Alex explained his discovery of the diary and the mystery surrounding Mrs. Turner and Whiskers. Mrs. Henderson listened intently, her interest piqued. "I remember Mrs. Turner," she said, nodding thoughtfully. "She was always a bit of a mystery herself. Never had many visitors, kept to herself mostly, except for her cat. The whole town was buzzing when she disappeared." Alex leaned forward, eager to hear more. "Do you know anything about this heirloom she mentioned? Or anything else that might explain why she felt so uneasy?" Mrs. Henderson frowned, tapping her fingers on the desk. The Turner family was old money, but most of it was gone by the time Mrs. Turner was around. There were rumors of a valuable locket, something passed down through the generations. But if she left clues about it, they've never been found. She stood up and led Alex to a corner of the room where a large filing cabinet stood. She opened a drawer labeled Turner Family and began sifting through the files. After a few moments, she pulled out a folder and handed it to Alex. "This might help," she said. "It's everything we have on the Turner family. Old photographs, some legal documents, nothing too detailed, but maybe it'll spark something." Alex thanked her and took the folder to a nearby table. He carefully spread out the contents: sepia-tone photographs, letters, and news clippings. One photograph caught his eye. It was of a younger Mrs. Turner, standing in front of her house with Whiskers at her feet. In her hand, she held a small, delicate locket. The same locket Joe had mentioned. His excitement mounting, Alex studied the photograph closely. The locket was intricately designed, a small, oval piece with an elaborate floral pattern. It seemed to glow even in the faded photograph, a piece of history captured in time. Among the letters was one from Mrs. Turner to her sister, dated shortly before her disappearance. It was brief, mostly mundane family news, but one line stood out: "I've hidden it well, for the right person to find. It must remain in the family." Alex felt a chill run down his spine. The heirloom was real, and it was hidden somewhere, waiting to be discovered. But where? The diary and the photograph offered no clear answer, just a tantalizing hint of a deeper mystery. He returned the documents to the folder and thanked Mrs. Henderson for her help. As he walked back to the fire station, his mind raced with possibilities. The house, the diary, the photograph, all pointed to the existence of the heirloom, but the question remained: where had Mrs. Turner hidden it? At the station, he spread out the evidence on the table, showing it to Steve and Joe. They pored over the documents together, each trying to piece together the puzzle. Joe pointed to the photograph. That locket. I remember hearing about it when I was a kid. People said it had a secret compartment, something only Mrs. Turner knew how to open. Steve leaned in, his brow furrowed. If the locket has a secret, maybe it's more than just a piece of jewelry. Maybe it's a key to something, or it holds information. Alex nodded. The diary mentioned that she was worried about strangers asking about it. Maybe someone was after the locket, or whatever secret it holds. As they discussed, Whiskers wandered into the room, jumping up onto the table. The cat sniffed at the documents, then curled up on the photograph of Mrs. Turner in the locket. Alex chuckled, reaching out to pet him. Looks like he's still guarding his secrets, Alex joked, but the thought lingered. The cat's sudden reappearance after all these years, the clues left behind, it all felt like pieces of a larger puzzle. The day turned into evening, and the group found themselves no closer to an answer. But Alex was determined. The story of Mrs. Turner had become more than just a mystery, it was a connection to the past, a thread tying the present to the history of Brooksville. As the town settled into the quiet of the night, Alex knew they had to go back to the Turner house. The answers they sought were likely there, hidden among the dust and memories. The locket, the diary, the photograph, they were all part of a story that was far from over. And so, with a plan forming in his mind, Alex prepared for another visit to the old house, hoping that this time, they would uncover the truth about Mrs. Turner's disappearance and the mysterious heirloom she had left behind. Chapter 4, The Search for Clues. The Turner house stood silent and imposing as Alex, Steve, and Joe arrived early the next morning. The sky was overcast, casting the old mansion in a muted, gray light. The air was thick with anticipation, each step towards the house feeling heavy with the weight of history. Whiskers, as if sensing the importance of the visit, had tagged along, weaving between their legs as they approached the front door. Pushing open the door, they were greeted by the familiar musty smell of old wood and dust. The house felt even more solemn than before, as if it were holding its breath, waiting for the secrets within to be discovered. Alex led the way into the living room, where they had agreed to begin their search. They decided to focus on the rooms Mrs. Turner frequented most, as the diary had hinted that her favorite places might hold clues. It's everything we have on the Turner family. Old photographs, some legal documents, nothing too detailed, but maybe it'll spark something. Alex thanked her and took the folder to a nearby table. He carefully spread out the contents, sepia-tone photographs, letters, and news clippings. One photograph caught his eye. It was of a younger Mrs. Turner, standing in front of her house with Whiskers at her feet. In her hand, she held a small, delicate locket. The same locket Joe had mentioned. His excitement mounting, Alex studied the photograph closely. The locket was intricately designed, a small, oval piece with an elaborate floral pattern. It seemed to glow even in the faded photograph, a piece of history captured in time. Among the letters was one from Mrs. Turner to her sister, dated shortly before her disappearance. It was brief, mostly mundane family news, but one line stood out: "I've hidden it well, for the right person to find. It must remain in the family." Alex felt a chill run down his spine. The heirloom was real, and it was hidden somewhere, waiting to be discovered. But where? The diary and the photograph offered no clear answer, just a tantalizing hint of a deeper mystery. He returned the documents to the folder and thanked Mrs. Henderson for her help. As he walked back to the fire station, his mind raced with possibilities. The house, the diary, the photograph, all pointed to the existence of the heirloom, but the question remained, where had Mrs. Turner hidden it? At the station, he spread out the evidence on the table, showing it to Steve and Joe. They pored over the documents together, each trying to piece together the puzzle. Joe pointed to the photograph. That locket. I remember hearing about it when I was a kid. People said it had a secret compartment, something only Mrs. Turner knew how to open. Steve leaned in, his brow furrowed. If the locket has a secret, maybe it's more than just a piece of jewelry. Maybe it's a key to something, or it holds information. Alex nodded. the diary mentioned that she was worried about strangers asking about it. Maybe someone was after the locket, or whatever secret it holds. As they discussed, Whiskers wandered into the room, jumping up onto the table. The cat sniffed at the documents, then curled up on the photograph of Mrs. Turner and the locket. Alex chuckled, reaching out to pet him. "Looks like he's still guarding his secrets," Alex joked, but the thought lingered. The cat's sudden reappearance after all these years, the clues left behind, it all felt like pieces of a larger puzzle. The day turned into evening, and the group found themselves no closer to an answer. But Alex was determined. The story of Mrs. Turner had become more than just a mystery, it was a connection to the past, a thread tying the present to the history of Brooksville. As the town settled into the quiet of the night, Alex knew they had to go back to the Turner house. The answers they sought were likely there, hidden among the dust and memories. The locket, the diary, the photograph, they were all part of a story that was far from over. And so, with a plan forming in his mind, Alex prepared for another visit to the old house, hoping that this time, they would uncover the truth about Mrs. Turner's disappearance and the mysterious heirloom she had left behind. Chapter 4, The Search for Clues. The Turner house stood silent and imposing as Alex, Steve, and Joe arrived early the next morning. The sky was overcast, casting the old mansion in a muted, gray light. The air was thick with anticipation, each step towards the house feeling heavy with the weight of history. Whiskers, as if sensing the importance of the visit, had tagged along, weaving between their legs as they approached the front door. Pushing open the door, they were greeted by the familiar musty smell of old wood and dust. The house felt even more solemn than before, as if it were holding its breath, waiting for the secrets within to be discovered. Alex led the way into the living room, where they had agreed to begin their search. They decided to focus on the rooms Mrs. Turner frequented most, as the diary had hinted that her favorite places might hold clues. The three men worked methodically, each taking a different part of the room. Joe sifted through the bookshelf, pulling out volumes in case anything was hidden behind them. Steve carefully examined the furniture, looking for hidden compartments or loose panels. Alex focused on the fireplace, where the portrait of Mrs. Turner and Whiskers still hung. The cat had followed them in and was now sitting on the hearth, watching their every move with a keen, almost knowing gaze. As they worked, Alex couldn't help but feel the presence of Mrs. Turner in the room, as if she were watching them, waiting to see if they could solve the puzzle she had left behind. The portrait above the fireplace seemed to smile down at them, a quiet witness to the unfolding events. After hours of searching, they had found nothing substantial. Frustration began to creep in, but Alex refused to give up. He turned his attention to the grand piano in the corner of the room, a beautiful instrument that had undoubtedly seen better days. As he ran his fingers lightly over the keys, a thought struck him. He called over to Joe and Steve. "Guys, come check this out." They gathered around as Alex lifted the piano lid. Inside, tucked among the strings, was a small, dusty envelope. He carefully retrieved it and blew off the dust. The envelope was unsealed, and inside was a yellowed piece of paper. Alex unfolded it to reveal a handwritten note. The note read, "To whoever finds this, the key lies where the sun meets the earth, where shadows dance and secrets lie. The locket will reveal all, but only to those with the eyes to see." Elizabeth Turner. The cryptic message left them all pondering. Steve frowned, rereading the note. "Where the sun meets the earth. What does that mean?" Joe scratched his head. "Could be a riddle. Sounds like it's pointing to a specific place or time." Alex nodded, thinking. It must be a place in the house, somewhere that has a connection to light and shadow. The locket, maybe it's not just a piece of jewelry, but a literal key. The mention of the locket brought their thoughts back to the photograph they had seen at the Historical Society. The intricate design, the way Mrs. Turner held it, it had to mean something more. Alex felt the pieces coming together but still lacked a clear picture. They continued their search, moving through the house with renewed energy. The cryptic note suggested something to do with light, so they paid extra attention to windows, mirrors, and any objects that might interact with sunlight. It wasn't until they reached the old study, the room where Alex had found the diary, that they stumbled upon a possible breakthrough. In the study, a large, ornate mirror hung on the wall opposite the desk. The mirror was old and slightly tarnished, but its frame was beautifully crafted with intricate floral patterns, similar to the design on the locket. The sun had finally broken through the clouds outside, and a beam of light streamed through the window, hitting the mirror and reflecting onto the wall. Alex watched the light play across the wall, and an idea formed. What if the mirror is the key? Maybe it's supposed to reflect something specific. They adjusted the angle of the mirror slightly, trying to catch the light in just the right way. As they did, the sunlight hit a small spot on the wall that seemed unremarkable at first glance. But upon closer inspection, they noticed a faint outline of a panel. Excitement surged through them. Alex carefully pressed on the panel, and it swung open to reveal a small compartment. Inside was a delicate, silver locket, exactly like the one in the photograph. The locket was surprisingly warm to the touch, as if it had been waiting for them all this time. Holding the locket, Alex felt a mix of triumph and curiosity. He turned it over, searching for a way to open it. There was no obvious clasp, but upon closer examination, he noticed a tiny, nearly invisible hinge on one side. Gently, he pried it open. Inside the locket was a tiny, intricately folded piece of parchment. Alex unfolded it with care, revealing a small, hand-drawn map and a single word written in elegant script, "Garden." The map showed a layout of the Turner estate, with a particular spot in the garden marked with an X. Alex felt a thrill of anticipation. The garden was known to be overgrown and neglected, a place few people ventured. If Mrs. Turner had hidden something there, it could very well have remained undisturbed all these years. "Looks like we're going outside," Alex said, pocketing the locket and the map. Joe and Steve nodded, their expressions a mix of excitement and determination. They made their way out to the garden, the air heavy with the scent of wet earth and overgrown foliage. The garden was indeed wild, nature having reclaimed much of it. Using the map as a guide, they navigated through the tangled vines and tall grass, searching for the marked spot. After some searching, they found a small, secluded area, hidden from view by a thick wall of hedges. The ground here was soft, the earth dark and rich. Alex used a small trowel he had brought along to gently dig at the spot marked on the map. After a few moments, the trowel hit something solid. His heart raced as he cleared the dirt away, revealing a small, weathered box. Carefully, he lifted it from the ground, brushing off the soil. The box was old but intact, its wood darkened with age. Alex opened it, revealing a collection of items, letters, photographs, and a small, intricately designed locket matching the one they had found inside. Among the letters was a note addressed to the future, written by Mrs. Turner. It explained the history of the locket, a family heirloom containing a message of love and hope passed down through generations. The locket was a symbol of unity and strength, meant to be found by someone who would appreciate its significance and carry on the family legacy. The discovery left them speechless. They had uncovered not just a mystery, but a piece of Brooksville's history, a story that connected the past with the present. As they stood in the garden, surrounded by the echoes of history, Alex felt a deep sense of satisfaction. The journey had been unexpected and challenging, but it had brought them closer to understanding the town's past and their place within it. The locket, now with its secrets revealed, would become a cherished artifact, a reminder of Mrs. Turner's life and the mystery that had captivated the town. Alex knew they had found something precious, not just a physical object, but a connection to the past, a story waiting to be told and remembered. And as they walked back to the house, he felt a sense of closure and a new beginning, all at once. Chapter 5, The Revelation. The Turner garden, now basking in the warm glow of late afternoon sunlight, felt like a world apart from the rest of Brooksville. The discovery of the box and its contents had left Alex, Steve, and Joe in awe. They stood in silence, the weight of their finds settling over them like a soft, comforting blanket. The air was filled with the scent of blooming flowers and fresh earth, and for a moment, everything seemed to pause, as if the world was holding its breath. Alex carefully unfolded the letters they had found in the box, each one revealing a piece of Mrs. Turner's life and her deep connection to the town and her family. The letters spoke of love, loss, and the passage of time, written in a beautiful, flowing script that conveyed a sense of grace and wisdom. It was clear that Mrs. Turner had been a woman of great depth and kindness, her life intertwined with the very fabric of Brooksville. One letter, addressed to the finder, caught Alex's eye. It was dated shortly before Mrs. Turner's disappearance, and as he read it aloud, the words resonated deeply with them all. To the one who finds this, the letter began, I have hidden these keepsakes with the hope that they will find someone who understands the true value of family and history. The locket, a symbol of love and unity, has been a cherished heirloom in our family for generations. It carries the stories and memories of those who came before, and it is my wish that it continues to do so. In this box, you will find letters, photographs, and mementos that tell the story of my family. Please, keep these safe and share them with the town, so that our history may live on in the hearts of those who cherish it. As Alex finished reading, a profound silence fell over the group. The gravity of the moment was palpable. They had not just uncovered a piece of jewelry but a legacy, a testament to the enduring power of memory and connection. Joe, his voice thick with emotion, spoke first. Mrs. Turner wanted her story to be remembered. She didn't just disappear, she left us a gift, a chance to remember and celebrate the lives that came before us. Steve nodded, his usually stoic demeanor softened by the moment. We should share this with the town. Everyone should know about Mrs. Turner and what she wanted to pass on. Alex agreed. We can set up a display at the Historical Society. It will be a way to honor her memory and remind everyone of our shared history. They gathered the items carefully, ensuring that everything was preserved and protected. As they walked back through the garden, the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting a golden light that bathed everything in a warm, gentle glow. The garden, which had seemed so wild and untamed earlier, now felt peaceful, as if the earth itself was at rest, content with the secrets it had finally revealed. Back at the Historical Society, Mrs. Henderson greeted them with wide eyes and an eager smile. They recounted their discovery, showing her the locket, the letters, and the photographs. She listened with rapt attention, her eyes misting over as she realized the significance of what they had found. This is incredible, she whispered, holding the locket gently. It's like a window into our past. We must tell everyone. Mrs. Turner's story deserves to be shared. Over the next few days, the Historical Society became a hub of activity. Word spread quickly through Brooksville, and soon, townspeople were flocking to see the exhibit. The locket, placed in a glass case, became a symbol of the town's history, drawing people together to share stories and memories. Alex, Steve, and Joe watched as the town came alive with the story of Mrs. Turner. People shared their own memories of her, recalling her kindness, her love for whiskers, and the mystery that had surrounded her disappearance. The exhibit became more than just a collection of items, it was a celebration of the town's shared history, a reminder of the connections that bind them all together. One day, as Alex was at the Historical Society, a young woman approached him. She introduced herself as Emily Turner, a distant relative of Mrs. Turner. She had heard about the exhibit and wanted to see it for herself. My grandmother used to tell me stories about Mrs. Turner and the locket, Emily said, her voice filled with wonder. I never thought I'd get to see it. Thank you for bringing this piece of our family history back to life. Alex smiled, touched by her words. It was a team effort, and it's been an incredible journey. Your great-aunt left a legacy that has touched so many lives. It's a privilege to share it. As the days turned into weeks, the story of Mrs. Turner and the locket became a beloved part of Brooksville's cultural fabric. The exhibit drew visitors from neighboring towns, all eager to hear the tale of the mysterious woman and her treasured heirloom. The town embraced the story, finding in it a sense of pride and identity. For Alex, the experience was transformative. He had come to Brooksville as a firefighter, seeking a quiet life in a small town. But the journey to uncover Mrs. Turner's legacy had shown him the importance of history and community. It had brought him closer to the people of Brooksville and given him a deeper appreciation for the stories that shaped their lives. One evening, as the sun set over the town, Alex stood in the garden of the Turner house, now beautifully restored by the town's efforts. He watched as the golden light bathed the house and garden, casting long shadows that danced across the grass. Whiskers, now a beloved mascot of sorts for the town, sat beside him, purring softly. In that quiet moment, Alex felt a profound sense of peace and fulfillment. He thought of Mrs. Turner, of her hopes for her legacy, and of the town that had embraced her story. It was a reminder that the past is never truly gone, it lives on in the memories we share and the connections we make. As the first stars began to twinkle in the twilight sky, Alex knew that Mrs. Turner's story, and the story of the town, would continue to be told for generations to come. The locket, with its hidden secrets and timeless beauty, was more than just a piece of jewelry, it was a symbol of the enduring power of love, memory, and community. And as he walked back through the garden, the cool evening air filled with the scent of blooming flowers, Alex felt a deep sense of gratitude. He had been part of something extraordinary, a journey that had brought a forgotten story back to life and reminded everyone of the importance of cherishing the past while looking forward to the future. In Brooksville, the legacy of Mrs. Turner and her cherished locket would live on, a beacon of hope and unity in a world that often forgets the beauty of simple, enduring stories.